Hello, friends, and welcome to Leadership Happy Hour. I am Chip Lutz, unconventional leader, and tonight's guest is somebody I literally have known my entire life. Ever since I was a wee little boy, I have known this man.
I can't say the same thing.
No, he can't. But tonight I'm going to be talking to my brother Matt, who's also a retired naval officer. And Matt's had leadership positions pretty much, in the private sector and in the Navy. After 9/11, he was critical in, working in the casualty branch on making notifications to next of kin and working with Dover on identifying remains and so forth. He spent a year boots on ground embedded with the Army in support of Operation Noble Eagle. He's also, had key leadership positions in the VA and other leadership positions. And, truthfully, for me as a leader, I would never have joined the Navy if it hadn't been for my older brother. But two, whenever I had an issue of note that I was pondering, I would always call him to say, hey, what do you think about this? And he always gave me semi-good advice. So welcome, Matthew. Cheers to you. Welcome to Leadership Happy Hour.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Hello, Barbara.
So, our listeners, a little bit about you, you as a person, you as a leader.
Well, I like long walks in the woods. Let's see. As Chip said, I spent 29 years in the Navy altogether between active duty and reserve. I'm post commander for my VFW post, but I don't know if that's a leadership position. I just showed up more than other people. We did make all state post though, which is a big deal. There's a lot of work that's involved in that, and we got that done this year. So I'm really happy for my guys. Also, I was promoted to facility manager when I worked for WW Granger, and that was an interesting thing because I was in charge of a lot of people who had been over me at some point in my career there, so they didn't necessarily like that. So that was an interesting challenge. And I also worked in a shipyard as a production supervisor, and I had never worked in a shipyard before, but I'd done a lot of ship repair when I was at active duty, and that was an awful lot of work. People didn't like the fact that I'd been hired in. I always get in those positions where they don't like the fact that I came from somewhere else or I got promoted over somebody. Nobody ever likes that. So.
Right. It was the same way when I was born. I remember that you didn't really like it that I came from someplace else, and mom liked me a little bit. Yeah. Anyway, let's before we get into tonight's topic, expectation management, I think that you hit on something really critical as far as kind of something that a lot of us have to deal with as leaders, and that's sometimes we get hired from the outside and we're brought in, or we get promoted over the people that we're around, and that can sometimes cause a little bit of discord with the people around us. So what have been some strategies you've used on getting past that, on making sure that you created a cohesive team environment, but weren't too abrasive in the process, where people still got things done and they respected you as a leader?
And you want me to talk about a time when I wasn't abrasive? I don't know if such a time exists, Chip. So what I tried to do, like for instance at Granger, what I tried to do, I'd worked with all these people up until I worked side by side. I came back from Afghanistan. I was there about 6 months and got promoted over people who had been there while I was gone for almost 18 months. So no one was really happy about that. So what I did is I made sure I talked to everybody, both as a group and then as individually, to make sure that they knew that I valued what they were doing while I was gone, and also I valued the fact that I had learned a lot from them. That made a big difference, I think, for the most part, except for those people that were always going to be mad no matter what you did. And there's always those people.
There are always those people that are mad no matter what, malcontents. And there's not a lot you can do with that except just kind of like roll with the punches and deal with it.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's a great strategy to use as far as like trying to connect with people on an individual level to, get past some of those issues. A lot of people, at times people just need to know who you are as a person, and then they can get to not really like you, but, respect you a little bit more.
Yeah, either they like me or they don't. I didn't really ever care. But the other is like when I was on the East Moline Fire Department, I went from being just a regular firefighter who didn't necessarily, one day you're part of the problem, the next day you're the solution kind of thing. So found that that in the Navy also as you get promoted. But what I did at the fire department, I went from being on the line to being administrative training officer. And I did a needs assessment so that everybody felt like they had a voice in what they were doing. And we followed, we took that into consideration when I made a training plan. So that really helped a lot.
That's good. I mean, keeping people a part of the process. You are very astute, Matthew.
Wow.
You'll never hear that come out of my mouth again, especially in a family environment. So,
yeah, you'll never let mom know, right?
No, I won't. What's been one of your most challenging leadership positions? Where you were kind of like thrust in there, maybe you had to learn quickly, or the people were challenging, what is one of those things where you were just kind of, it was a growth spurt for you where, like for me, I think about different leadership positions I've had where I thought that I had it all under control, and then I got thrust into a new position. I'm like, I found myself wholly unprepared, but in the end, it ended up being a growth spurt for me. What was one of those for you?
For me, it was really working at the shipyard because, I hadn't really done shipbuilding per se. So, from the bottom up, I understood construction principles and so it was learning not only how to build, but also overcoming a language barrier because a lot of the people that worked for me, I had 25 people that worked for me, and I had four guys that spoke English fluently. Everybody else was English as a second language. So coming over that language barrier and making sure that they understood what I needed, what my expectations were for their work, and then make sure that I also knew what their expectations were of me, which is equally as important.
It's funny. I always find that when I'm not speaking the same language as somebody, I always find myself talking louder.
Yeah, so it was like this when we were on the ambulance. The first guy, you're yelling at the person. By the time the third guy comes in, they're screaming, and they still don't understand a thing.
Like, remain. It's like at the end of Animal House when Kevin Bacon is at, they're like, remain calm. All is well. All is.
Well, that's right. So
I always find myself, always talking a little bit louder on that when that's the case. What?
They just don't speak your language.
No, exactly. What's been one of your most rewarding jobs as a leader?
That's a good question because they all have their own special attributes that I learn from. I like the where I learn. I also like where I feel that what I'm doing is important. But I think it's hard to say to isolate just one. I know being in Afghanistan, I wouldn't willingly go back again, but I didn't mind being there after the first 8 months. I was okay with it. Well, we built a lot of stuff, and we made the people there that were serving there more comfortable. So that was an important job, right. So I really like that.
With acceptance comes peace. After 8 months, you're like,
I was sitting in my little room, my little 9x5 room, whatever it was. And I was thinking, yeah, about 8 months, I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm good. This is good. I can be here.
This is good. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, I know when we talked previously, looking at the topic for tonight, and I asked you like, hey, would be something that you would want to talk about. You brought up the case on expectation management, or like, talking to your people about expectations and so forth. So I thought that it would be a good part, a good point to start on and just, have a discussion about expectations. I'm a firm believer that, you can't be upset when people don't meet your expectations when you don't tell people what your expectations are. That a lot of times we just go through life thinking that people are gonna, do what we want, read our minds and stuff. And that is rarely the case, and mostly ends up with a lot of butt hurt in an environment, in a working environment. People get kind of upset.
I also mentioned earlier when we first started talking about that, is that being a grown man and having worked on my own and been in leadership positions, if I don't know what the person in charge of me's expectations are, I'm going to make my own. I will set my own goals and live to those expectations, and they may not be the same as whoever's in charge of me. So It's really important that they know. So let me tell you a little story. Is that all right?
Yeah, please do. Please do. We both know the difference between, a sea story and a fairy tale.
Yes, one starts out once upon a time, and the other one starts out, and this is no shit.
Right.
And no good story ever starts out with I was eating a salad.
Well, there I was eating a salad.
I hope you're laughing, Barbara.
I've never heard that before. That is awesome.
Really? You never heard that one?
Starts out with,
I didn't. Well, as you know, I didn't make that up, because if I had original thought, it'd be a fast trip from here to here. Anyway, I just started working for the government, and I'd been there about maybe 3 months, and all of a sudden I found out that I was in trouble, and I didn't really understand why. And I was in this room with the two division leaders and the person that was my boss, and apparently I hadn't been doing anything that she wanted me to do. But the part that I brought out and what came out in the meeting is that she had never told me to do anything. So I'd been, I was a property manager, and I'd just been taking care of stuff that as it came up, and spending a lot of time going to meetings and taking care of, different projects. And she didn't have any idea what I was doing, because she was never in the office. And I'm a big boy. I don't need to go sit on her lap every day and tell her what's going on. So that came out. So they moved me. Not that I wouldn't have wanted to. Oh, wait, that might have been sexist. Sorry. Anyway, so they moved me to another building. And before I went there, I talked to the lady who was in charge, and I said, this is what I need to know, what your expectations are and what your goals are, or else I'll make my own. She totally understood that, and she told me what she wanted me to do and how she wanted it accomplished. I may not have done exactly how she wanted it accomplished, because everybody can meet a goal. I think people can meet a goal, without following the exact steps, as long as you're getting to the end point and you haven't really missed anything big. So that worked out well. And after about 6 months of working for her, she said, what were you doing over there? And I said, just asked her, do you like what I'm doing here? And she said, yes. I said, I was doing the same thing over there. So she thought that was funny, but it was very true.
What do you think? All right. So, I mean, it all started out kind of, I wouldn't say horrible, but on a bad note, where she didn't really think you were meeting stuff, but then in the end, you were really meeting it. So obviously there's a communication piece in that, but what do you think kept her from clearly, getting out there and letting you know in the first place?
I think that she was intimidated by my knowledge, because I'd been in building management for a while, and I'd ran a really large corporate building, Class A office building, for over a year and a half, where I was not only the facility manager, but I was the project manager, the construction manager, contract manager. I'd done all these different facets for about half the pay that I was making with the government. So when I got to the government, I knew all this stuff, and I think part of it then intimidated her, and which is unfortunate, because that really wasn't my intent. So I think that she felt that I was going to be, I don't know, abrasive, maybe. I don't know. So I think what's I gave everybody in the office nicknames, and when I was calling one kid Corky, he found out where it was from, as you know, and he was complaining. And when I laughed and I told people that she was mad about it, that he was mad about it, she got upset.
Well, I mean, that's a good example of how, just knowing what people expect, and I think sometimes as leaders, we make certain assumptions. We assume people know what we want them to do. We assume that they know what our expectation is, but we don't tell them what it is. Then we get all mad because they don't meet our expectation.
Right.
And that, kudos to you for like stepping forward and saying, hey, you need to tell me what you expect. Otherwise I'm not going to hit this. Because 9 times out of 10, that never happens. People don't come up and ask you.
The side note of that is the 2 division directors both recommended me for higher positions after I left. So, I mean, they, when I wanted the position that they have, they said, we'll write you a recommendation. And they did. They wrote me really nice recommendations for that. So, I mean, these are the people that were ready to fire me because of what she said. And then afterwards they found out that no, it was okay. So it wasn't really me.
So like for all emerging or regular leaders out there, I mean, what are some tips you have on looking at expectation management? What are some things that you think are critical for people to get out there and do as a leader?
Find out what your job really is. I mean, what it is you're trying to accomplish, because sometimes people.
I'm gonna toast you on that one. Cheers to that.
Well, some people really don't understand what their job entails, So what I try to do, this is what I do. When I start a new position, like the position I have now, I figured out what it is I really needed to do. And then I wrote, and it's going to seem weird, but I wrote a mission statement for what my position is and what I wanted to accomplish. And then I put a matrix out to kind of grade myself on. And then I let the guy that works for me, I got one guy that works for me, and we were failing miserably after the first month. And then I just made sure that he understood what my expectations were. And then once that happened, like when I told him either we step up or neither one of us have a job, I think he got that. So it was a matter of letting him know. So I do the mission statement for me, and then I share it. And then I do the matrices, and then matrices. Is that right? Matrices? Matrix.
Sure.
So I do that, so I know what, that this is my mission statement. This is how I'm going to judge how well I'm doing. And I make sure that not only I know that, but the people above me know that. So, and then my worker knows that, so that he knows what I'm expecting of him. And if that changes, because most of that stuff's a fluid motion, right? I mean, it's fluid. Your job description can be fluid, and it may change a little bit. And as it does, keeping people updated on what that is. So that's what I do, and it's worked well. I did that at Granger. I did that. I did it actually at the fire department at Granger. I did it when I had my own personal business, my own personal heating and air conditioning, on how I was going to attack things. Maybe I should do that on my personal business now. That might help. And then I did it when I got to this particular job. So when I went to Seattle area and I was energy manager for the government, I did the same thing there, and it worked well. Wherever I've done that, and I share it with my boss, and then with the people below me, it works well.
It just keeps everything kind of in alignment, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, for me, yes, that's a good way to put it. It keeps it in alignment, and it lets people know this is where I'm coming from. And a lot of times, like when I was the energy manager, I already had all these things that were put into place that I had to follow. So, here's what my mission statement is to meet these goals that I have to do. So this is my mission. This is how I'm going to do it. And this is what I expect of the people that work for me. And if they didn't work for me, the building managers who were in charge of that. How come when you're on one of these, you really feel like you got to pick your nose? I'm just kidding.
Because you probably don't notice it because you do it all the time.
That's right.
Just like I always take my glasses off because I have a really bad habit of pushing them up. So even when I have them off, I want to push them up. So I got sidetracked there. Well, I mentioned alignment because with you communicating that to your boss, if something isn't on track with, where the organization is going, I'm sure then that opens up the line of communication where they can communicate it back to you like, well, hey, that's good, but maybe we want to tweak it here a little bit, because
that is what my boss in Seattle did. He told me that's really good, but what you need some processes. He said, I don't care if it's one sentence, but you need a process. Somebody can say that we can't follow that because you don't have any processes. But you say, well, I got one. They can say it's not any good, but you have the procedure or the process written down. So I try to do that now too. I try to have a procedure for stuff that I need to get accomplished, whether it's writing a work order or if it's getting together a proposal. I do that. I put it together. So here's my proposal. Here's how I do this process, and people can say it's not any good, but I've got a process. Help me make it better then.
Well, I think that's a good piece of advice for anybody. Whether you're overall in charge and you're setting out it, writing out the expectations, communicating to them, or if you're the person that's down below and you're not exactly sure what your boss expects, and you write something out and then you feed it to them, it's like, hey, this is where I'm going. What do you think about this? Can you give me a little bit of feedback? Then it opens up that line of communication where everybody's on the same page. I mean, that's right. That's a smart strategy, where it helps, overall it helps everybody. Especially, like I said, a lot of times we're sitting back thinking that, people just know what they're supposed to do or know what we expect of them, but we never communicate it to them. Hopefully they would take, if we don't do that, hopefully they would take the initiative to do that. But if not, then take heed, take advice from you to do that and communicate it to your boss. That's good stuff.
Well, I remember when you took over at security director there in Naval District, Washington. I know that's not the right term, but you'd never done that type of work before. So what did you do? You delved into the manuals, right? Found out this is what my job's supposed to be. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And then you made that happen. And when shit hit the fan, you were prepared and other people weren't. So that I've taken that into heart, and I try to remember that somewhere there's either a procedure already, and I'm big on not reinventing the wheel, and or I write it up myself. So, and I might steal a little bit from somebody, but to fit my own mold. Not really steal, not plagiarize. I'm just borrowing.
We call that in the professional world Xeroxing. I'm going to Xerox that.
Very good. Very good.
We're going to Xerox that. So I know, I've always appreciated your leadership advice, over the course of the years, not that I took all of it, but you take, you always have I'm a firm believer having a personal board of directors, people that when you have something going on, you reach out to different people, you get different perspectives, and you take it, you mold to see what works for the situation. Because not everybody you talk to understands the situation you're in. I mean, they just don't. Right. But I've always appreciated, your advice and, some of the things that you've told me over the years have always stayed with me. So what's too bad. What's that?
I said, that's too bad. Some of it stayed with you. Some of it.
just like with our dad, some stuff shouldn't have stayed with me, but it did.
It did, yeah. There's an awful lot of Eugene runs deep in this one.
Yep. So, what is your best piece of advice? Pieces of advice for leaders that are just starting out. Because I'm a firm believer that we do a really good job of promoting the person that's technically competent, but we don't do a really good job usually for preparing that person to lead other people. That usually that we throw them in this position, they've never been in a leadership position before, and they find themselves wholly confused, wholly unprepared, and usually hating the fact that they're in charge of other people. So for you as a leader, what would be some of the advice or some of the ways you would coach some of those leaders through that process so they would get a little more joy in what they're doing and really do a better job of leading?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that some people get in those positions and then find out they don't like it. Our own dad was it. They moved him up to foreman and he moved back down. He didn't like it. So, they want to be in charge of people. So, he wanted to go to work and work all day long and not have to worry about all the extra crap. He was happy just working. So what my advice would be just kind of what I said, find out what your job is, what your boss expects of you, and then make sure that you understand how you want to get that accomplished and look at the resources that you have. So I had a bunch of CBs in Afghanistan, and I had 13. I had 13 because one was the leader, and so he didn't really do any work.
Well, and CBs are, for those people that aren't familiar with the Navy, CBs are the construction battalion. They're the people that actually build things in the Navy. They're right. Kind of like combat construction workers.
Yes, they got a hammer in one hand and an M16 in the other.
Yep.
So I had 6 active duty guys and 6 reserve guys. The reserve guys were ready to do whatever, and the 6 active duty guys I would have to get them. I would have to convince them that this is what we're doing today. So I used my best leadership role for that. Said this is what we're doing today, kind of thing, And they had to do it because that's what I told them to do. But it also tried to do it with a sense of humor. It's yourself that humor can diffuse a situation if used appropriately. It can diffuse a situation. Like for instance, we were supposed to be changing out a bunch of it was shoddy workmanship from Afghan nationals. It was really, really terrible. And it wasn't so much the workmanship as it was the materials. They were all leaking on these plumbing supplies, and I had to change this valve out. And I just told the guys, I said, "This is what we're doing today, and I'm going to work. I expect you guys to work too." So they were all just standing there fuming at me for a little while. The 6 active duty guys, the reserve guys are already gone and doing stuff. And I took this valve apart, and water splashed up all over me, And they all started laughing, and they all went to work. They just thought that was hilarious. So,
well,
I mean, it wasn't even supposed to be humorous because I didn't think it was humorous, but it got them to work.
Humor is kind of subjective like that. But I'm a firm believer, like you were alluding to, is that I think humor renders people benevolent. That you can be having the worst conflict with somebody, but if you can find something to laugh with them about, usually you can find something. That's the connection point with that person. And that with leaders, a lot of times we get in this mindset of like, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. But if we just learn to, loosen up and laugh at our own mistakes, it gives our people the permission to do the same, and it can create a different environment there. Even if, with that, like you said, you didn't think it was all that funny, but afterwards, it was pretty funny. Something you could, a connection point for everybody in, later on to talk about is like, hey, Warrant Officer Lutz had this thing happen and blah, and you're like, it's a good connection point for people.
It was important. So humor used appropriately can diffuse a situation. So, and don't take yourself too seriously, because I think that sometimes as a leader, we can think that we're the most important person in the world. We get the big head, can't get through the door. Next thing you know, we're telling people to take the wrong copier, whatever. So, I mean, it's just a matter of making sure that when you're living within your pay grade and you're reacting appropriately. So, I thought I'd bring the copier up before you did.
I'm not going to bring it. I'm not going to bring that story up. So, actually, I will. So, I'm going to share this story with everybody here because it's a great story.
Pass iced tea through my nose.
It's indicative of my brother, who I love dearly. But at his 10-year reunion, when he went, everybody would come up to him and it's like, "Hey, Matt, remember when you beat this guy up? Hey, Matt, remember when you beat this guy up?" So I wrote on his name tag, he said, "Hi, my name is Matt." And underneath I wrote, "I probably beat you up." But so, not that my brother Matt has anger issues, but he's always been a tad bit assertive. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. So we were working together in Washington, D.C., and like I said before, Matt had a really stressful job. He was working down in the Casualty Assistance Branch where he was, working with Dover Air Force Base. When somebody's remains from the Pentagon would be identified, he would work with them, liaison with the families. It was a really stressful job. He had a team of people that he was working with there. It took a toll on him and everybody around him. And so, they were working, what we call in the Navy half days. That's 6 to 6, then plus some. But
more like 6 to 9.
Yeah, so they were working long days. And so he was down there. He was a supervisor in the shop. And this one cocky commander came down and basically said to my brother Matt, is like, "Hey, I need one of these copiers. Which one can I have?" And Matt pointed at one, said, "You can have that one." And the commander looked at him and was like, "Well, why that one?" And Matt said, "Because that's the broken one."
No, I said, "It doesn't work because it doesn't work." Same thing, but yeah, he got really mad. I don't understand why.
Anyway, but it was a classic example of
I know I just snorted.
a situation of, on his side, not Matt's side, the other guy's side, coming down, throwing his rank around, thinking like, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do, but not realizing that the other mission really need to happen. And that mission that, they were taking care of was much more important than him making copies of whatever he need to make copies of.
Oh yeah, he's kind of a doofus anyway.
Well,
I remember how upset you were, though. You forget to tell me.
Neither here or there. It was a good example of assertive leadership in action.
Yes.
On my brother's side. Cheers to you, my brother.
That was a real stressful period. I remember the day that I left. I don't have to come back. I don't have to come back. Oh, and I started dancing on the tabletop. Everybody thought I was crazy, but by that time, I just about was.
It was stressful for all of us.
Yeah.
That day, 9/11, and for the year afterwards, it was crazy. So, we were actually at an actual bar, and we were drinking and partaking of libations. I would probably challenge you to do something stupid, but since we're not out and about, I'm just going to ask you random questions from my Would You Rather book right here, my Overstuffed Would You Rather book. I have not pre-selected any questions.
Liar.
I'm not. I'm going to thumb through randomly and just pick
some
one.
people randomly at these spots I have sticky tape on.
All right. Matthew Lutz, would you rather be able to fast forward life or rewind it?
I think I'd rather fast forward it. I already know what I did. If I change any of that, I may not be who I am today.
That's a good answer. All right. Would you rather have Gatorade saliva or Argyle irises?
Gatorade saliva? That's like the stuff left over in the bottom. I'll go with the Argyle stuff, whatever that was.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Last question. I think you'll like this one. Would you rather, Matthew D. Lutz, be able to communicate with the animals, but only the nerds, or be able to read people's minds, but only when they're thinking about aluminum siding topics and issues?
That's not a real question. You just made that one up. Only the nerd animals, huh? So that'd be like the sloths and the little squirrels zipping around.
Yeah.
So I think I like the aluminum siding topic.
I knew that. I knew you would choose that.
Because aluminum siding is important in life. You never know when you might need it.
And so are pumps.
So,
for those of you who don't know, that my brother Matt is a contractor. He does facility management, but he also runs his own building inspection business. If people want to find out a little bit more about what you do, where can they find you online?
I think I have a website. www.accelerate-inspections.com.
How do you spell that? Accelerate.
Just like it sounds.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a special spelling,
No, it's just accelerate, because you know what I want to give the impression of? Things are going really fast. That's what I want to give the impression of. So, yep. Let me see. I probably got something. No, I don't. Never mind.
And they can also find you on Facebook at
Facebook and LinkedIn, and actually, I have a Facebook page for my business also, where I post very handsome pictures of myself on top of roofs, precariously hanging onto the roof to get a picture.
Good deal. Well, I really appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me today. I know that we talk all the time, but this was a little bit different conversation than we normally have.
Yes, it was.
And actually, I learned a couple things about you I didn't know, and I thought that I knew pretty much everything about you.
But you knew the aluminum siding thing, so.
Well, I had a thought that might be the case, but I wasn't really sure that would be the case. So anyway, But I learned a couple things about you, and hopefully for people that are listening, you learned a few things as well, you know, looking about expectation management and just advice for new leaders about how better connect with your people and get things done. I mean, because in the end, that's where we're all trying to get something done. You know, we're trying to leverage that human piece in order to, you know, get more done. And, you know, that's the more personal we make that, the more we're actually going to get done. So I want to thank you for your time. A big cheers to you. I want to salute. I want you to cheers me there. There we go. Cheers to you. Thanks for spending your time and attention with me. And for everybody, again, I'm Chip Lutz, Unconventional Leader. You can find me at www.unconventionalleader.com. Go there, get a free ebook for sign up for my newsletter. And I appreciate you spending the time on listening to this podcast. Take care,
thanks, everybody.
Thanks again.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Lutz is out.
Done.